The smell still carries across Armory Road on certain mornings. Not real, of course. The BSA factory complex at Small Heath has been gone for 40 years, replaced by housing estates and a retail park where teenagers vape outside of Greg's. But the older residents swear they catch it sometimes. Burnt metal, hot oil, the acrid tang of welding torches working overtime. At its height, the Birmingham Small Arms Company employed 14,000 workers on this site alone. 14,000 men and women who could assemble a motorcycle faster than you could describe one. The factory floor stretched across 47 acres. The noise was biblical. The output was staggering. In 1954, BSA produced 75,000 motorcycles in a single year, making it the largest motorcycle manufacturer on Earth. 1 in 4 motorcycles sold anywhere in the world wore the Piled Arms badge. Then came 1973. The receivers walked in on a Tuesday morning. By Friday, the production lines had stopped forever. The metalworking machinery was sold to a scrap dealer from Wolverhampton for £12,000, equipment that had cost millions. Nobody can explain how it happened so fast. One day, Birmingham was the motorcycle capital of the world. The next day, it wasn't. It began with rifles, not motorcycles. In 1861, 14 gunmakers pooled their resources, 25 pounds each, a total working capital of 350 pounds, to bid on a government contract for infantry rifles during the American Civil War. The Birmingham Small Arms Company was born from necessity, formed at 84 Shadwell Street, in a workshop that smelled of gun oil and Birmingham rain. The founding members weren't visionaries. They were craftsmen who saw an opportunity. The Crimean War had proved British gun manufacturing couldn't meet wartime demand. The Franco-Prussian War confirmed it. These men, practical Midlands engineers, built a company on the back of government contracts, selling Martini Henry rifles to the British Empire at £3 and 7 shillings each. By 1880, BSA was producing rifles for conflicts across 3 continents. The transition to bicycles happened almost by accident. In 1880, the company started manufacturing bicycle components to fill gaps in the production schedule between military orders, steel tubing, chain sets, ball bearings. By 1910, BSA was Britain's largest bicycle manufacturer, producing over 100,000 machines annually. The motorcycles followed in 1910, almost as an afterthought, a natural progression from bicycles with engines bolted on. That first model, a 3.5 horsepower single-cylinder machine, cost £55. It was agricultural, unreliable, brutal to ride. It sold out immediately. Edward Turner arrived at BSA in 1936 with a reputation and a temper. Born in 1901, Turner had spent his 20s designing motorcycles for Ariel, but he'd grown frustrated with management who wouldn't listen. At BSA, he found a company desperate for innovation. The board gave him carte blanche. What followed was the most successful period in British motorcycle history. Turner designed the Speed Twin in 1937, a 500 cubic centimeter parallel twin that changed everything. Clean lines, reliable power, a top speed of 93 miles per hour. Priced at £75, it was affordable for the professional classes. More importantly, it established the template that every British motorcycle manufacturer would copy for the next 30 years. BSA sold 25,000 Speed Twins before the war interrupted production. During the Second World War, BSA's Small Heath factory switched to military production. The company manufactured 126,000 M20 motorcycles for the British Armed Forces. Dispatch riders used them from North Africa to Normandy. The factory worked 20-hour shifts. Women made up 60% of the workforce, assembling rifles, motorcycle engines, and aircraft parts under blackout conditions. The Luftwaffe bombed Small Heath 17 times. Production never stopped. By 1945, BSA wasn't just surviving, it was printing money. Between 1950 and 1960, BSA dominated world motorcycling with a brutality that's difficult to comprehend now. The numbers were obscene. In 1954, the company sold 75,000 motorcycles. In 1959, that figure hit 150,000. BSA owned 40% of the British market. In America, the company controlled 50% of motorcycle imports. The Gold Star, launched in 1952, became the most desirable sports motorcycle in the world. a 500 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine, producing 42 horsepower, capable of 110 miles per hour, ridden by privateers who won races on Saturday and rode home on Sunday. Bob McIntyre won the Senior TT in 1957 on a Gold Star, averaging 98 miles per hour for 6 laps of the Isle of Man. The motorcycle cost £275. You could buy one on hire purchase for 30 shillings a week. Every working man in Britain wanted one. The export markets were even more lucrative. BSA motorcycles sold in 73 countries. The factory in Small Heath ran 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. On the production line, a skilled worker could assemble a complete A10 Golden Flash in 42 minutes. The pay was £4 and 12 shillings a week. Good money in Birmingham. The factory canteen served 11,000 meals daily. The site had its own fire brigade, its own medical center, its own railway sidings. It was a city within a city. Then the Japanese arrived. The collapse of BSA can be traced to a series of decisions made between 1962 and 1970, each one logical in isolation, collectively catastrophic. In 1962, BSA's management visited Japan to assess the competition. Honda, Yamaha, and Suzuki had started exporting small-capacity motorcycles to America, lightweight, reliable machines priced under $600. The BSA executives toured Honda's factory in Hamamatsu, saw the automated production lines, the quality control systems, the economies of scale. Then they returned to Birmingham and did nothing. The board concluded that Japanese motorcycles were toys, not serious machines. British motorcycles were for men. Japanese motorcycles were for delivery boys. The market would correct itself. It didn't. By 1965, Honda was selling 150,000 motorcycles annually in America. BSA's response was to double down on large-capacity motorcycles. The company launched the A65 Thunderbolt in 1966, a 650 cubic centimeter twin priced at £310. It leaked oil, vibrated violently above 70 miles per hour, and required constant maintenance. But it was British, and British was still synonymous with quality. Except it wasn't. Quality control at Small Heath had collapsed. The factory was using tooling from the 1940s. Components didn't fit properly. Motorcycles left the production line with loose bolts, misaligned wheels, electrical faults. Dealers in America reported failure rates of 30%. BSA's reputation bled out slowly, one return motorcycle at a time. In 1968, BSA merged with Triumph Motorcycles, creating Norton Villiers Triumph, the last great consolidation of the British motorcycle industry. On paper, it made sense. BSA brought manufacturing capacity. Triumph brought engineering expertise. Together, they could compete with the Japanese. In reality, the merger was a disaster. The companies maintained separate factories, separate design teams, separate parts suppliers. There was no integration, no cost savings, no efficiency gains. Worse, the two firms began cannibalizing each other's sales. BSA and Triumph were now competing for the same customers with nearly identical motorcycles. The A65 and the Bonneville were mechanically similar, priced identically, sold through overlapping dealer networks. The result was market confusion and eroding margins. Meanwhile, the boardroom became a battlefield. BSA's chairman, Eric Turner, clashed with Triumph's managing director over product strategy. Engineering teams refused to share designs. The Small Heath factory and the Meriden factory operated as rival kingdoms, each protecting its territory. Production costs spiraled. By 1971, BSA Triumph was losing £3 million annually. The Labour government stepped in with a bailout, £4.8 million in loans, conditional on restructuring. The company announced redundancies. 2,000 workers at Small Heath would lose their jobs. The unions called a strike. Production stopped for 8 weeks. When it resumed, the damage was terminal. Dealers had canceled orders. The supply chain had collapsed. Honda had filled the gap. On Tuesday, September 10, 1973, the receivers from Deloitte walked into BSA's headquarters at Armory Road. The company was insolvent. Debts exceeded £20 million. There was £43,000 in the bank. The production line stopped at 2:47 p.m. 10,000 workers were told to go home. Most of them had worked at Small Heath for decades. Bob Wilshaw, age 58, had started as an apprentice in 1933. He'd spent 40 years on the shop floor, assembling motorcycles through 2 wars and countless models. He walked out of the factory that Tuesday afternoon with a cardboard box containing his tool set and a redundancy check for £340. He never worked again. The factory itself lingered for a few years in a kind of corporate purgatory. Parts of the site were sold off piecemeal. Norton Villiers Triumph continued producing motorcycles at Meriden until 1983, but BSA as a brand was dead. The last BSA motorcycle, a B50, rolled off the production line in 1973. Total production, 47 units. The machinery was auctioned in 1974, a complete production line capable of manufacturing 100 motorcycles per day, sold for £8,500. The buyer was a Pakistani industrialist who shipped everything to Karachi, where it rusted in a warehouse. The dies, the molds, the tooling, decades of engineering knowledge scattered across 3 continents and lost. Before it died, BSA Racing had dominated British motorsport with a ferocity that bordered on obsession. The works team won 52 TT races between 1920 and 1957. Jeff Smith won 2 World Motocross Championships on a BSA in 1964 and 1965. Mike Halewood, the greatest road racer of his generation, started his career on a BSA Gold Star. The racing program was expensive, costing £200,000 annually by 1970, but it sold motorcycles. Every privateer who won a club race on Saturday wanted the same machine the factory riders used at Mallory Park. BSA understood this. The company produced limited-run racing models, the Rocket Gold Star, the DBD-34, the B50MX. These motorcycles weren't profitable individually, but they sustained the brand's mystique. When BSA collapsed, the racing program died overnight. The works team disbanded. The racing engines, hand-built, one-off prototypes worth thousands, were sold as scrap. Jeff Smith, the double world champion, bought his own race bike from the receivers for £120. He still owns it, displayed in a garage in Shropshire. It's worth £40,000 now, but he won't sell it. "It's the last one," he said in a 2019 interview. "The last proper BSA." The Small Heath factory site today is a monument to municipal pragmatism. The main assembly hall, which once housed 47 acres of production machinery, is now an Asda supermarket and a retail park. The former administration building survived until 1997, when it was demolished to make way for housing. 163 flats now occupy the space where Edward Turner designed the Speed Twin. There's no plaque, no memorial, no acknowledgement that this was once the center of British motorcycling. The only physical remnant is a small section of the original factory wall on Armory Road, preserved by accident rather than design. It's red brick, 12 feet high, topped with broken glass set in concrete, a Victorian security measure. Graffiti covers most of it now. The BSA name survives as a corporate zombie. The trademark was sold to a series of owners, a group of Indian businessmen in 1990, a Chinese conglomerate in 2016, a British investor in 2021. There have been multiple announcements of new BSA motorcycles, machines designed in Britain, manufactured in India or China, sold for £8,000 with nostalgic styling and modern engines. They have nothing to do with Birmingham. They're motorcycles wearing a dead brand's clothes. In Small Heath itself, the memory has faded. The workers who assembled Gold Stars and Thunderbolts are dying. Their children moved away, found different work. The teenagers vaping outside Greg's don't know what BSA stands for. The smell of burnt metal is gone.